4, 5, 6, yes. Okay, that completes my strength set for my biceps. I've done 6 repetitions for strength. Now I'm going to do 8 repetitions for hypertrophy. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I did 10 repetitions for hypertrophy because strength is what you get between doing repetitions of 2 to 6, and hypertrophy is somewhere between 8 and 12, and I did 10. But don't do 7 because 7 is in the middle of strength and hypertrophy, which means you get nothing. Now I'm going to do a toning set of 15 repetitions. Now you may be asking, what am I doing? Yes, welcome back to Kmax. Here I am out in the beautiful country of New Zealand, picking up rocks with my gorgeous wife. Yes, we're picking up rocks for our rock garden. Got our puppy dogs with us as well. And it made me remember a memory when I was in the gym as a young buck, and one of the trainers was taking a lady through a set on the seated machine chest press, and she had virtually no weight on it, a tiny little rock, a tiny little weight, and she got her lady to do a set of 6 repetitions, and I was listening to her while I was training someone else, and she says, okay, now that's 6, that's your strength set. Now, and then she gave her a rest. Then she says, let's do a hypertrophy set, anywhere between 8 and 12, so we'll do 10. She didn't change the weight. She kept the weight exactly the same, but did 10 this time. Then after doing that, she gave her a rest, and then she says, okay, now we're going to do a toning set. We're going to do 15 with exactly the same weight, thinking that the magic and the results comes in the numbers. Now, what I do know is muscles don't have ears. They can't hear and they can't count. So if I lift this weight for 3, that's not going to make my muscles powerful, because you read in a book somewhere to get power you need to do 3 to 5. And hey, if I lift this for 8, because in the book it says you have to do 6 to 8 for strength, and then if you did beyond that for endurance, or whether it be toning, whatever the book says, it's not the numbers in the set, it's what's actually in the numbers, which is what is the weight for the number. So when you look at repetitions, you see and hear lots of different ideas and thoughts and opinions. And unfortunately, I see a lot of people lifting a weight, something like this, and they're doing all these funny exercises, and then they put the weight down, this weight, and which is probably lighter than their handbag, or lighter than their briefcase, and they think they're going to get strength, endurance or muscle hypertrophy out of using a very light weight in the gym, whether it be 5 kilo or 5 pound, depending on them, which thinking that, hey, just lifting the weight's not going to give you the results. It's the weight that you lift that's going to give you results. And then they start to restrict themselves using numbers, stopping at 8 or stopping at 10. Imagine if you couldn't count and you just lifted the weight and you did as many as you can, you will probably not stop at 6 or 10 or 12. Why doesn't people stop at 11? Why do they pick 12? Why do they pick 6? Why not 7? 7's a neglected number. I don't know. Isn't 7 magnificent? Magnificent 7? So people sort of pick numbers, but they don't really know what those numbers represent. So let's have a look at repetitions and what it really means. Now, when you're overloading a muscle or using a metabolic process in the muscle, that muscle is performing work using energy, and it uses the 3 energy systems. Now, there's 3 energy systems that use 3 substrates of energy. The first energy system is what we call the phosphate energy system, and that's those first 10 seconds of maximal force, maximal effort to volitional failure, where you can't do another one. So that's for the first 10 seconds, called the phosphate system, using ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and creatine phosphate as the source of energy. Now, that energy-rich molecule is stored in the muscles. They're ready to be used straight away. And basically, you access it straight away, and then you run out quickly because it doesn't last very long. It can give you high amounts of force, lots of energy quickly, instantly, but it runs out very, very quickly. And in that energy system, using fast-twitch muscle fibers, which are the bigger, more powerful muscle fibers that have high power output but low endurance. So if you look at 10 seconds, that's 10 seconds to failure, because I can lift this for 10 seconds, I can just keep doing this for 10 seconds and stop and say, there, I'm working my phosphate system. But I'm not, because I'm not actually overloading the muscle in the phosphate system, because the muscle is not fatiguing. I'm not activating the muscle to its maximal capacity in those 10 seconds, because if I was activating to its maximal capacity in those 10 seconds, it would fatigue, it would fail, volitional failure, which means I'd probably need to use one of these really big rocks so I can fatigue, because this little rock, the load's too light for me to fatigue. I don't need a lot of energy to lift a light load. I don't even need to activate fast twitch muscle fibers. If I can lift this a lot of times, I activate my slow twitch muscle fibers. So if I want strength and power output, which is also related to muscle size, because if you want to get bigger, you have to get stronger. There is a relationship there. Then you want to be picking weights that is relative to your strength level, that's going to make you fail anywhere between maybe 5 to 10, maybe 12 seconds or so, because now you're going to be really directly in that energy system. If you can keep going, producing energy, lifting weight, doing repetitions beyond those 10 seconds, means now you're going into maybe 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 repetitions, depending on the speed, because obviously I could go really slowly or I can go fast. It's not the repetition, it's the time that the muscle is being exerted to its maximal capacity in that time frame. So if I'm going to be a lot beyond 10 seconds and way into what we call the lactate energy system, and that's the anaerobic energy system that uses glycogen as a source of energy without the presence of oxygen, called anaerobic glycolysis, and it produces energy still relatively quickly, not as fast as the phosphate system, but still relatively quickly. And that's where you get that byproduct called lactic acid, because you're using glycogen as a source of energy. The byproduct is lactic acid, and that lactic acid gives you that little burning, firing sensation, that pump in your muscles, and you go, wow, that's the burn. Well, the burn basically means you're not working in the phosphate system, means you're working into the lactate energy system, and that's where you're going to be, whatever the weight is, you're going to be lifting that weight beyond 10, 15 seconds, and beyond maybe up to a minute. The lactate system does go up to 2 minutes, and you're going to get that burning, that pump type sensation, which is not necessarily related to strength or muscle size. It's purely what it is a metabolic byproduct using glycogen as a source of energy without the presence of oxygen. And again, if I want to work, I have to go to volitional failure. So rather than restrict yourself with repetitions, because a lot of people, if I set a repetition, they'll stop at that repetition rather than go beyond. So when you first start training, you go, so what am I training for? Am I training for strength or power? The more strength and power that you want to develop, then obviously the lower the repetitions that you're going to be able to do to keep yourself into the phosphate system. So you want to be able to lift as heavy a weight as you possibly can under 10 seconds of maximal force output. But if I wanted to maybe not develop as much power and strength, where I still want to have a bit of strength and obviously a bit more safety, because I'm using a lot of load, then you might lose a lot of load, but do more repetitions into 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So when you set yourself a goal, rather than saying I'm going to do 12 repetitions, start with, pick a weight that you feel comfortable with and do as many as you possibly can. And don't stop until you cannot do another one. And when you can't do another one, pretend someone pulls a gun to your head and says, do another one, otherwise I'm going to shoot you, and then do another one. And now you're pushing your body physiologically to create more work to its maximal capacity. And if your repetitions gets up to 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, then obviously the weight is too light for you to develop strength or power or muscle hypertrophy, because you're getting right into the lactate energy system using slow twitch muscle fibers, where ideally if you want to develop strength, muscle hypertrophy and power, you want to be anywhere between 1 repetition, I suppose, through to maybe around about 12, because once you get into 12 you're going into the lactate system. So rather than set a goal to do 12, do as many beyond 12. And if you can go past 12 or past 10 or past 5 or past 6, depending on where in the energy timeline you want to be. So if it's 5, it's more into the phosphate system. Let's get up to 10, it's on that that bridge between the phosphate and the lactate. If you go into 12-15, you're going into the lactate system. Depending on where you want to target, if it's fast twitch muscle fibers, it's going to be more down in the phosphate system. If it's slow twitch muscle fibers, it's going to be more into the lactate. So pick the system that you want to stimulate, the muscle fibers you want to stimulate, and then pick the appropriate weight that will fatigue you in that energy system. Now, when you first start weight training, you're not going to know what that is. So you're going to just pick a weight that is going to be a good guess and do as many as you can. And you say, look, I really want to develop maximal power or strength. It might be around 5 or 3 repetitions. Then if I can go beyond 5, then I put the weight up. That knocks me back down to around about 3. And when I can build up the repetitions again to go beyond 5 or 6 or 7, then I put the weight up that puts me back to the 3-4 range. If our goal is looking at strength, then I might be picking repetitions of anything over 8. I'll put the weight up, they'll knock me down to 5 or 6. If I'm looking at for a bit of strength endurance, I might be looking at 10, and anything above 10, then I put the weight up and that may knock me back down to 7 or 8 repetitions. So don't stop because it's a number, just stop because your body can't do another repetition. Use the numbers for something to break through, not to stop at. So if last week I did 9 repetitions with this massive weight in my hand, then this week I'm going to aim to do 10. And if I can do 11, then I'm going to pick a bigger rock or a bigger weight. That may knock me back down to 6 or 7 or 8. That's okay. I've progressed by increasing the weight, and then over the coming weeks I'll progress by progressing the repetitions. And when the repetitions goes past, say, 10, if that's my target, and I get to 11 or 12, then I'm going to progress in weight. So either way, you're always getting positive forward movement. You're getting positive forward movement because you're always aiming to do an extra repetition. And once you get past a set repetitions to keep you within the energy timeline that you want to be in, or the energy system you want to be in, then you progress the weight. So you're either progressing repetitions or you're progressing weight, which means you are actually progressing physiologically, because if I stop and I can do more, then I haven't stimulated the muscle anywhere near its maximal capacity. Therefore, there's no reason for it to change. If I do 5 repetitions with this, I'm still activating slow twitch muscle fibers because I could probably do 200. So doing 5 is not going to activate the phosphate energy system. It's not going to activate the fast twitch muscle fibers. It's the weight that fatigues my muscle in that part of the energy system, activating that types of muscle fibers, that will give me the result. So ideally the weight will continue to progress to a point where I've achieved my goal, I'm comfortable with my strength, I'm comfortable with my muscle size, I'm comfortable, and then I may just maintain that. But what I do find a lot of time, unfortunately, a lot of people are committing their time, their effort, they're going through the motions, they're in the gym for hours, they're going through lots of exercises, but the weights that they're lifting is so substandard or submaximal, they think they're getting a result, but they're not getting the result what they think, because they think the results comes in the numbers, not the weight behind the numbers. And the weight behind the numbers will determine where the numbers should be according to the energy timeline, the energy system with the phosphate, lactate. And the third one, which I haven't mentioned, is obviously aerobic, when you go beyond 2 minutes. And aerobic is using carbohydrate, fat and protein as a source of energy in the presence of oxygen, breaking it down aerobically, basically for long, and that goes on forever. But we spend, when strength training, you're trying to, or people want to call tone training, it's the same thing. You can't tone a muscle. Muscles are either getting stronger or weaker. It's either growing or not. You can't just do a substandard weight and tone it, because if nothing changes on the bar, nothing's going to change on the muscle. So if the weight's staying the same, particularly if it's submaximal, then nothing's going to change. You're just taking a muscle through its normal motion with a substandard, submaximal weight that's not going to force it to change. You're just using it. You're not going to go backwards, but you're certainly not going to go forwards. And how would you know if you're going forwards if you're not challenging yourself to do more repetitions or doing more weight? Because if you're not progressing, you're not moving forward. So you have to measure your progress, doing as much weight as you can for the repetitions that you can, doing as much as you can in the part of the energy system that you'd like. Take that on board. Obviously lift safely, safe progressively, don't use momentum, don't do dangerous exercises, biomechanically ineffective exercises, and don't use a weight that is submaximal, because you're far better than that. If you're going to put in the time, then you want to be maximizing your results using physiology and the energy systems and the energy timeline and activating the right muscle fibers, and then you get the right result. What do you reckon, Giorgio? She's panting down here. See you in the next K-Max.